The Texans have brought in a grand total of 3 players so far in free agency. 2 of them I talked about last week. One of them I'll get to here in a bit. But the important thing is there's still some players out there that the Texans could still bring in. Will they? That's yet to be seen. Should they? Yes, they should. But, first let's talk about the other guy that we signed that wasn't Gibson or Roby, and that is Brian Body Calhoun. That's how I've heard his name being pronounced. It's spelled all sorts of weird. Some people call him BBC. So whatever you want to call him, it's up to you. Now, BBC, he is a corner slash safety. He can play outside corner, not at a high level. He can play slot corner at, pretty decent level, high level. He was really good for the Browns in 2017, 2018. Wasn't really all that active as much as he was the year prior. And he can also play some safety. So this guy, in my opinion, this is the guy that's going to come in here and probably compete with Aaron Colvin for the nickel spot, the slot corner spot, whatever you want to call it. And he's just going to be a depth guy, quality depth, To me, those backups, they got to be able to do multiple things, and they got to know how to do multiple things well. Because once you start getting to the back of the roster, you can't really carry enough players for every position. And you can only have 46 players active on a game day. So the guys you do have active on the back end, they better be ready to do just about anything. So Brian Body Calhoun, BBC, whatever you want to call him, I think he's a good addition to the team. A 1-year contract under $1 million. So yeah, Browns fans were pretty pissed about losing him. So whenever that happens, whenever the fan base is pissed about losing a player, you got yourself a good signing. So I like this signing, but I still think the Texans need to make more signings. Now, I do have some names, 8 names of players that the Texans should target. Not even target, they should go out there and sign. Now, 3 of these names, they don't really fit what the Texans are doing, and 5 of them totally do. Now, let's start off with the ones I just do not see happening, but I would like to see. And number 1 on this list I have is Ndamukong Suh. You guys know Suh. He was with the Lions for, the early part of his career, then went to Miami, and then went to the Rams and helped take them to the Super Bowl. Now, Suh's a guy who, in the past, he was regarded as a nasty player. But I think those days are, behind him. Those days stayed. In Detroit, Suh isn't really dirty anymore. He's just an all-around good run stopper. A guy who can push the pocket, which is something we need. Interior pressure. And Ndamukong Suh can bring that. Yes, he's 31, but, who cares? He can still do it at a high level. He was doing it last year for the Rams. It was just overshadowed by, obviously, Aaron Donald. If we could bring in Ndamukong Suh, imagine Clowney, Suh, and Watt, and DJ Reader. Just imagine that. I'm just saying, Suh will be expensive. I will say, probably over, not even probably, easily over the 10 mil mark. Might even hit like 13, 14 mil a year. Probably a 1-year deal. Gain loves those 1-year deals. So, I wouldn't mind Suh, and I think the Texans should definitely take a look at Suh. It would take away one of the needs from the draft and let us, just draft corners and offensive tackles. Now, the next guy, Morris Claiborne, he played for the Jets last year, or I believe the past 2 years, maybe, and played for the Cowboys years prior to that, during his rookie contract, and he was pretty good. The early part of his career, he had injury issues. As of late, those injury issues kind of went away. But Morris Claiborne, bringing him in, he'd automatically be our best corner on the roster, and I'm not even playing. He's just a talented player. I see him as a decent number 1 and a lockdown number 2. So you could use him however you want to, but he is definitely an outside corner. Now the next guy that if I were the Texans, I would bring in is EJ Gaines, and I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with EJ Gaines. We really wanted him. Most of the Texans fans wanted him last year because he was coming off a year where he played the number 2 corner spot opposite of Tre'Davious White, and he was really good. Now, the problem with EJ Gaines is he's not exactly the tallest boy out there. He's 5'10", and he is injury prone. Now, I'm not talking about Jason Verrett, Kevin Johnson injury prone. You know, just injury prone. He gets injuries here and there. And I just wouldn't mind the Texans bringing in EJ Gaines. Again, I think if EJ Gaines were to come here, I think he'd automatically be our best corner. That's how bad the Texans corners are. Roby, not good. Jonathan Joseph, maybe he was good 3-4 years ago, but at this point in his career, Joseph is not good. So the Texans could still make some moves to fix that corner spot, but unfortunately, I don't see it happening. Now, the other 5 names that I'm about to list, these guys kind of fit with what the Texans are pretty much doing right now, or what I think the Texans are doing right now. And the first name, well, this one doesn't really fit it, but it's Jake Fisher. You guys probably heard his name already. The Texans brought him in for a visit. He's offensive tackle converted into a tight end. And the reason I want the Texans to sign this guy is because I do not like Ryan Griffin. I think Ryan Griffin needs to get out of town. So if we bring in Jake Fisher, he would pretty much be that blocking tight end, run blocking, pass blocking tight end. And it would let Jordan Thomas and Jordan Akins just go out there and be receiving targets. And I think that's something we need. I don't care if Jake Fisher was a former offensive lineman. I really don't. I just want someone that can get Ryan Griffin out of town to give the Jordan brothers or twins, whatever you want to call them, an opportunity to go out there and, you know, make something happen. Now, these next 4 guys, they fit with what the Texans are doing. Now, if you pay attention, the players the Texans have signed, besides Roby, you got, what's his name, Gibson and BBC. Both of those 2 guys, they don't count against the whole comp pick thing. You guys, if you guys don't know what a comp pick is, teams, whenever they lose some players in free agency, they get a draft pick for the following season. For example, the Texans, since they lost Kareem Jackson and Tyrann Mathieu, well, they would have gotten 2 third-round picks in 2020. But since the Texans signed Roby, it cancels out one of those third-round picks. So the Texans will get a third-round pick next season for Tyrann Mathieu. And it's also possible that they get a 7th-round pick for Kendall Lamb. That's a little bit of a stretch, though, but it is possible that they get a really late 7th-round pick for him. Now, there is a way to kind of avoid losing comp picks, and that's by signing players that were cut. So the Texans, by signing Tashaun Gibson and BBC, they don't lose a comp pick. So it's kind of obvious that the Texans are kind of trying to hoard comp picks. Maybe they want to pick more players next year. Maybe they want to make some trades next year. I don't know what the reason is, but it's pretty obvious that the Texans are trying to hoard them. And, you know, it's fine. Most of these upper tier teams do that. The Patriots do that. The Rams, Seahawks. The reason why they do this is, again, you know, make trades throughout the season, before the season, during the off season, and all sorts of stuff, you know, because if you have these comp picks, you could trade the comp picks. Or, for example, if you have an extra 3rd-round pick, then trading a 2nd-round pick doesn't hurt as much, you know, and stuff like that. So the Texans are hoarding them. So these players I'm about to list are all players that have been cut from their previous team. So the Texans won't be affected by the whole comp pick situation. Now, the first name I'm pretty sure you guys know, and you're pretty sure you guys want him to, and I want him to. That's Donald Penn, left tackle for the Oakland Raiders. Now, Donald Penn, you know, pretty much his whole career up into last year, He was a dominant left tackle. And then the Raiders drafted Colton Miller, and then the Raiders, for whatever reason, decided to move Donald Penn, a guy who has played left tackle his entire life. They moved him to right tackle. He played about like 4 games, and then he got hurt. So that kind of messed with Donald Penn because he wasn't very good at the right tackle spot. And I know some people might say, well, I mean, he wasn't good last year, so why bring him in? Well, that's a completely different spot. He is not playing in his natural position, which is left tackle. And obviously, the Texans need offensive line help. Davenport, I don't think I can do another season of Davenport. I just can't. Now, the next name, another guy who was cut. Right tackle Ryan Strader from the Atlanta Falcons. This guy has been, I'd say, above average to good most of his career, except for 1 year, and that 1 year was last year. Last year he was pretty bad, so he got benched. So, take that however you want, take it. I mean, I think it's important to bring in some competition, so why not? Why not bring in Ryan Strader to compete with a rookie offensive tackle and Shantrell Henderson? I think this Texans offensive line could benefit with some competition. Now, the next guy is a guy I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with, and that's Josh Klein, guard who was cut by the Titans. Now, Josh Klein was pretty good in 2017, 2016, and even in 2015. This year, he wasn't good. Why is that? Well, a lot of Titans fans and people from the Titans media seem to believe that it was due to the Titans switching from a power running scheme to a zone running scheme. And if that's the case, then bring Josh Klein in here, because the Texans, for the most part, they want to run a power running scheme. You throw in Josh Klein in there, and he'd really be able to help out Fulton and Nick Martin, and I think he'd be a good addition. Now, the next guy is Josh Sitton. He was cut by the Dolphins. Sitton, he's a little bit older, but, it don't really matter to me. He is a guy who's been there, done that. He has been good all his career, except last year when he got hurt early on, so he didn't really get a chance to play last year. I'm pretty sure if he would have played last year, he would have still been good. So, again, bring in Sitton. He's an automatic starter in my opinion, and I think Josh Klein, he could probably compete for a spot. I think Strader could compete for a spot, and Donald Penn, in my opinion, would be an automatic starter over Julian Davenport. Now, again, these are just some names that are still out there that I think the Texans could add to the team to improve the team. And I do think they should at least consider some of these names, because bringing in 3 free agents, Gibson, yeah, I like him. Roby, hate him. And BBC, yeah, I like him. But I just don't think that's enough. I think the Texans can really benefit from bringing in players like Strader, Klein, to compete. Like, competition cannot hurt this Texans O-line. This Texans O-line needs to get better. You can bring in some players that are improvements like Donald Penn, Josh Sitton, a first-round rookie. But you can also bring in some names to compete, because these guys need some extra motivation to get better. Or, maybe these guys that we bring in, these guys that I mentioned, could probably even come in here and take someone's job. Like, who knows? Maybe they perform better in training camp preseason, and they're named the week 1 starters, and they end up being good for us. Like, who knows? A lot of these guys, except maybe Klein, would be stopgap options, though, because Penn, Strader, and Sitton, they are a little bit older. They're all over 30, so they wouldn't be a permanent solution, but they're options that are way better than what we have right now, and the Texans would really benefit from bringing in veteran presence to the O-line, because as of right now, I believe the oldest guy on our O-line would be Seantrel Henderson, and Seantrel Henderson really hasn't played much. So I'm just saying, this O-line needs a veteran presence. It needs some better players. And since we all seem to believe that, you know, Mike Devlin's one of the issues, and I totally believe he's one of the issues, why not bring in a guy like Donald Penn or Josh Sitton, who is a veteran and can show the younger offensive linemen how it's done? Because right now we ain't got no one, man. So these were just some names that I want to throw out there that the Texans could bring in to improve the team. And this video is being recorded a night before it drops, so on Sunday night. So if anyone gets signed, then I'm sorry, this video is pre-recorded like probably like about 12 hours before it goes live. So, you know, that 12-hour span, there's a possibility that someone like Sue could get signed, or, you know, maybe hopefully we sign one of those players like Donald Penn. Who knows? Anyways, that's all I have for you guys for today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.